Hi everyone, my name is Fatima Baldiwala and I wanted to introduce my sustainable business for climate action class that I will be teaching through West Community College Climate Center. Let's begin with defining what entrepreneurship really is about. The traditional view of entrepreneurship is that it's a business, but my view is that entrepreneurship is creating a solution for a community in which you reside and using the resources within that community, you make use of those resources in creating that solution. So it's all about it's community driven, but you are there for your community, not really there to make money, but to leave behind a legacy. So what exactly does climate change mean? Climate change is exacerbating changes in our climate at an alarming rate. Lately, think about your summers. How hot have they been? Think about those hurricanes, that once in a lifetime hurricanes that are no longer once in a lifetime, but that come around pretty often. Los Angeles just experienced a hurricane. We have something called atmospheric cold air, and we should not be experiencing hurricanes. But because of climate change, in LA, we experienced a hurricane in December of 2023. So climate change is exacerbating changes in our climate so that our natural disasters like floods and hurricanes and excessive heat have become more the norm and commonplace than once in a lifetime as they used to be. So the United Nations has come up with 17 sustainable development goals that they believe if we all learnt about and if we address, we would somehow be able to have the kind of society in which there is no inequality and everyone is treated right. I know it's a utopian dream and it's not really possible to do that, but if we could just have that kind of society, just imagine how wonderful it would be to live in that kind of society. Anyway, I got involved with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals when in fall of 2023, my class and I participated in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Challenge that was organized by the US State Department and the think tank that's called IREX. And I'm proud to say my students and I, we came in third. And that really opened my eyes to the possibility of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and implementing it into my classroom. And I also started learning about sustainable business practices. The United Nations says that one of the ways we can mitigate the climate crisis is by practicing uh, sustainable business practices. So, what exactly is sustainability? Sustainability is the three P's, where the business practices that you do are good for the people, good for the planet, and good for prosperity. You can also think of it as the three E's, as in environment, equity, and economic prosperity. So, when you're thinking of sustainable business practices, we have to keep in mind how much we waste. All the waste that we create goes into our landfills. So, if only we could recycle and reuse our waste, we would be practicing sustainability in our lifestyle. Unfortunately, right now, all that we recycle, only 9% of it is reused. The balance 91% is either buried or it's burnt. When it is buried, it the pollutants go into our soil and it pollutes our soil. When it is burnt, it goes into our air and we breathe in those poisons. So the way we can learn about recycling and reusing is by looking at nature. Everything in nature is recycled. Um, so currently, we should think of ways we can look at our waste and reuse it. When we think of reusing our waste, we should also always think of, okay, when we reuse something, it should become food for something else. It should either become food for the soil, like as a nutrient, or it should become food for a technological device. Like think of your cell phones. The copper wire in your cell phones can be reused. Your old refrigeration parts can be reused. So creating another technological device, or maybe it can be reused to create something entirely new, like a new product. So to reuse something, it takes a bit of creativity, but it is definitely possible. So, what is the definition of circular economy? A circular economy adopts a regenerative approach. It aims to keep materials and products in use for as long as possible through strategies like recycling, reusing, reducing, renewing, and redesigning. Re means again, by recycling it, reusing it, reducing, renewing, and redesigning. So, in order to do that, we have to rethink how we do our business. The circular economy is not about one manufacturer changing one product. It is about all of us. We are all interconnected, and if all the interconnected companies that form our infrastructure and economy come together, it's about rethinking our entire operating system. So, when we think of the linear model, Um, that's the old way of doing business. Think of a plastic straw. In order to make the plastic straw, we had to extract the plastic from the ground because plastic is made from fossil fuels, and that little plastic pellet would then be shaped and manufactured into a straw which would then be transported. Like most of the straws come from China. So just imagine that little straw making all the way across the seas coming to America. We use it once, and then what do? We waste it. We put it in our waste, and it's either buried or burnt. And both those options are really not sustainable. Now, what happens? I'm from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has a lot of coconut trees. What if we made our straws from coconut fronds? By making our straws from coconut fronds, we are, after its use, the frond goes back to becoming nutrient for the soil, or maybe you can use the front to make more straws. So it's a circular, it goes in a circle, and that's why it's called a circular model. When you are thinking of the circular economy, it's important to be inspired by nature. Biomimicry. Bio means life, and mimicry means to imitate life. So, the most common biomimicry product is what you see on the right, which is Velcro. The person who invented Velcro so, took his dog for a walk and looked at how these little spurs in nature stuck to the fur of his dog, and that's how he got the idea for inventing Velcro. And at the bottom, what you see is a hot paper cup. A hot paper cup is very similar to the crab that you see here. But unlike the crab, the hot paper cup is glued with metal, plastic, and um, paper, and we haven't quite figured out how to break it apart because we're very good at bonding things and gluing them in a way that we cannot then break them apart and reuse it. Unlike the crab, when the crab dies, its parts come, it's the parts of its body, the thick outer shell that protects it, and the uh, inner stuff, which is kind of like the hot coffee cup, it comes out. It Every part of the crab is biodegradable, but every part of the hot paper cup is not easily biodegradable because we haven't quite figured out how to break it apart. So the challenge of our life is going to be how we can, when we use something, break it apart and reuse its parts to make new things. So there is an abundance in nature. We should learn from nature. What you see out here is the Moroccan argon tree. And nature not only has abundance, it has diversity and continuation. Anyway, the Moroccan tree is an example of how people would just cut down the tree for firewood, not really understanding that the Moroccan tree had important oils that could be used for cooking or the medicinal value of its leaves. So we were looking at it with blinders on and not really looking at the whole thing and not seeing it as having an abundance in nature. And when you look at things with this narrow vision, you can never be sustainable because sustainability is grounded in abundance. And today's business linear model is grounded in scarcity. So we need to do more. We need to rethink and put on new lens when we look at the products we use. Because, as I said, the challenge of our time is to take apart things and reuse the parts to create new things. So, we are going to be learning about the value chain, the supply chain. We're going to learn about how to take a product from its idea phase to design thinking, and from design thinking to create a prototype, test a prototype, and then think of ways we can market it and put it out in the market. So, from the value chain to the supply chain, we have to think of ways we can be more sustainable. And in order to be sustainable, because sustainability, remember, the lens is to look at things through abundance and diversity and a continuation. So we need to think of our communities and we need to use the resources within our communities in order to maximize every part of the chain that we create. So for this class, you have to do two capstone projects, which are 30% of your grade. Uh, At the end of 16 weeks, you will be submitting a report, which is a research paper based off one of the businesses that you shadowed. Then at 10 weeks, you will be doing a sales pitch on a product that you create. Whether you are an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you will get an opportunity to design a product, and at 10 weeks, you will be doing that sales pitch. Besides that, you will be creating a business plan. 20% of your grade comes from creating this business plan and presenting it. Um, so, and I know you must be thinking, okay, if 30% is the capstone projects and 20% is the business plan, what about the balance 50%? The balance 50% will be in weekly discussions. So, why is climate change important? Because climate change is the problem of our generation. It's the existentialist problem of our generation. But being an entrepreneur, when you see a problem, you see opportunity. And opportunity means hope. If we all did our part, we can still hope to reverse the effects of climate change. So it begins with getting educated. Here are some statistics on why climate action is needed. Number one, our planet is warming at an alarming rate. It is 1.1% Celsius hotter than the pre-industrial levels. And yes, Um, it is us by burning fossil fuels, and we have exacerbated the greenhouse effect, and we are releasing greenhouse effect into our atmosphere that is warming our planet and creating these really unusual weather events that we are all experiencing. And there is no doubt about it. 99% of scientists agree that climate change is being caused by human greenhouse gas emissions. Finally, this is bad. By doing this, we are putting our planet on a course to becoming uninhabitable. Is that something you want to leave behind for your children? I don't think so. So the answer is to rethink how we do business and take my course, learn about sustainable business practices for climate action. And as taking my course means you will also have access to getting a paid internship during summer. Um, Thank you for listening. I have shared my phone number, I have shared my email, and I'm sharing the link for West Climate Center so that you could join my class. Thank you so much.